Okay, it's been a while since we've talked about anything MMORPG related, but today we have the gift that keeps on giving, I guess. Unless you funded this or was interested in Camelot Unchained, which of course is the spiritual successor made by one of the people who made Dark Age of Camelot. And it's not been going very well. They raised millions of dollars from Kickstarter and then subsequent crowdfunding, and the number of their actual pledges and the number that they've raised has been going backwards over time for the last year or so. And the only reason it's not been going backwards faster is that they promised to give people refunds and then didn't give people refunds. So as we're going to look at here, if you go into their subreddit, there's a sticky Camelot Unchained refund discussion. If you don't know how all this came about, don't worry, I'm going to fill you in on the juice. So originally, they basically said, oh, we're doing these things, and people got real upset in their community and said, we want refunds. Mark Jacobs, the CEO, had initially said, anyone who is unhappy, this is not a scam. We will just refund you. Just send us the request. We'll refund your money. If you don't want to be part of the project anymore, you can just take your stuff, take your toys and go home. So as soon as they did this really poor decision, this really bad PR and just general company decision, a lot of people in their community were rightly upset, and they were saying, we want our refund. You promised us a refund, give us the refund. Mark Jacobs then, there's a famous quote, if you go check some of my other videos on this on the main channel, Kira TV, the main channel, basically he was on Twitch and he said something along the lines of, I'm not legally or morally obligated to give you anything, which aged very poorly, because then within a week, when the majority of the at least vocal people within his community started saying, we want our refund, you've said you'll give it us, he then went on live stream and was crying, like not in the 2022 sense of you disagree with someone online and they say, why are you crying, like crying physical human man tears, which is fine, all good for showing emotion and all those things. But obviously he was saying, oh, give us another chance and I want to do right by you, etc., etc. And the sentence he ended it with was, give me 90 days to prove to you all that you've made the right decision in trusting me and giving me your money. And then, of course, 90 days elapsed and nothing had happened. People were still upset. People still wanted their money back. And then cue, of course, the pandemic. COVID hit, right? Hopefully that doesn't get this video demonetized, using those words. And obviously, he couldn't go into the office. And his wife is very sick. Obviously, that's terrible. But he was essentially saying he could only hand out refunds from the office, from this secure, non-networked computer where they store people's data or whatever else. Then, of course, it got found out he was going into the office, and people were pointing out, why don't you just, when in the office, pick up the computer, take it home, process the refunds, do what you told people you're going to do. He didn't. And then, of course, he's been back in the office for months now, like if months, over a year easily. And people are still posting, still waiting since March 2020. No reply or follow-up to an email sent about 8 months ago. 8 days ago. Same here. It's sad. Our refund requests are 3 years old. This subreddit turns 10 years old in 2 weeks, and there are no refunds or a release in sight. So, obviously, not really a man of his word based on that, of course. Not giving people refunds. People have received refunds, by the way. That might be a little bit disingenuous. I have to give some context. But he's not giving people all the refunds at once. It's like he's doing like one a week or something silly like that. Obviously hyperbole. Who knows what the number is. So basically what's happened since then, I was speculating obviously that this studio was going to run out of money because nobody in the public's giving them money. They're burning millions of dollars per year running this studio, and they were surviving purely off of private investment. And obviously, if they don't make it public, we can only speculate what investment they actually have. Now, this came out a couple of weeks ago, maybe more than that, maybe a month ago, something like that. City State Entertainment, which is the company who runs Camelot Unchained, secures more than $15 million in latest round of funding. Now, there's going to be some speculation in this video, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to give it you reading through the lines of PR, also from my experience, my understanding of what's going on in the studio, which may or may not be based on some behind-the-scenes information from current and or former employees. But of course, take everything I say with a grain of salt. It is, this is not a concrete fact. But reading this, City State Entertainment, developer of the massively multiplayer online role-playing game Camelot Unchained, Final Stand Ragnarok, and the Unchained engine, announces today that it has secured more than $15 million in new capital from an array of minority investors. This funding round consists of a combination of new and original investors, including several from Mark Jacobs' last video game studio, Mythic Entertainment Incorporated, which was sold to Electronic Arts in 2006. Now, there's some important information here. Camelot Unchained, right? That's the MMORPG that people paid for, that people wanted. Final Stand Ragnarok, we're going to get to this in a minute, because this is kind of the crux of what went wrong and what people wanted refunds for, but this is the big deal. Unchained engine. This is something I've been saying for a while, but we'll get into that in a minute. As this is the largest funding round that the studio has received to date, I'm extremely grateful to our investors and long-term backers of Camelot Unchained, who share our vision for both our games and the cutting-edge engine that we have created. Very important again, said Mark Jacobs, CEO of City State Entertainment. We've already reaped some of the benefits from this funding round as we continue to take our development and leadership team to another level. We'll get to that as well. With the uncertain and troubling economic times in the world, knowing that we can continue to work on our games while adding the people and talent we need to deliver on our current games is quite comforting. Now, we're going to talk about the leadership and take our development team to the next level, because their main lead developer has not so long ago left for another company, and there's some very interesting unspoken information within the statement he released as he left. This additional funding will allow us to continue to develop our engine. This is the key part of this. An engine that already delivers a variety of experiences not seen anywhere else in the industry, from massive real-time online interactions in procedural player-built worlds to handcrafted multiplayer battles where heroes can engage armies of thousands of enemies at a time, said George Davidson, Chief Technical Officer and founder of the Seattle studio. I'm looking forward to growing our team to polish and expand our cutting-edge technology stack. Mr. Jacobs added, I expect in the coming weeks, based on the number of people already in the hiring pipeline, we will accelerate our business activities. City State has continued to stay the course on focusing on massively scalable games and the technology it takes to build them, and that will not change on my watch. Now, this is very important because people didn't fund the Camelot engine. People funded Camelot Chained, the MMORPG. It was Mark Jacobs' decision to make an engine. One thing I speculated a while back, and one thing I said, is why crowdfunding is a problem when it comes to things like this, people not delivering on their original goal. If you fund somebody and they build a game, but the game never does well, but they use, for instance, Unity or Unreal Engine, and they just don't have a game by the end of it when they run out of money, they gained a salary for the time that they were making the game, but they didn't gain any real tangible assets, right, that they could turn around and sell or whatever else. When somebody's making a game engine on somewhat your dime, regardless of what happens, they still have that technology at the end. So even if they never deliver the game that you paid for, they're developing an actual tangible product that they can then turn around and sell. Now we have to move to this VentureBeat article, which does illustrate the points I'm making much more clearly, and there's some very choice quotes in here from Mark Jacobs himself that really illustrate the point I'm trying to make. So they raised 15 million, yada, yada, yada. Now Jacobs is back with City State Entertainment, which is making the massively multiplayer MMORPG, which we've talked about, and of course the medieval battle royale Final Stand Ragnarok. This is, of course, a complete joke. Jacobs started the company with co-founder Andrew Meggs in 2010. Both are using the Unchained engine, which Jacobs says can be used to create massive battles with up to 1,800 at the moment players in the same confined battle space. I'll just show you this while we're on the point of numbers. This is Final Stand Ragnarok as they launched the game, which they also crowdfunded, by the way. Sold people packages for this game before it came out. I did a cost analysis back when they announced this originally, showing specifically how many people had actually bought this. I'm not going to go into the numbers because I don't remember off the top of my head what it was, but it was like a couple $1,000 they raised off of Final Stand Ragnarok, because obviously nobody wanted it. Everyone wanted the MMORPG. Nobody wanted this, as evidenced by the fact the launch date had 19 peak players and 141 Twitch viewers. And then 2 days later, it had 2 players online. And I'm fairly sure I was one of these people. I tried the game out. It was absolutely awful, terrible. Nobody's going to play this. But when we go back to the VentureBeat article, this is going to be shown for what it is. So those soldiers can fight out in real-time multiplayer combat, said Jacobs in an interview with GamesBeat. It so happens this kind of intense online experience, which I've seen in demos, is key to metaverse experiences. Interesting. I wonder how that's going to play out as we go forward. For instance, rivals, which means you're competing with somebody for something. Hadeen, I don't know who the fuck this is, and Improbable being the company that made Spatial OS, which anybody who's followed game development for the last decade or so will know that Spatial OS is it's one of the worst companies to ever exist in game development, in my opinion, because I've never seen a game release using Improbable's technology, Spatial OS, and actually do anything. The games I've seen use it have been complete failures due to Improbable in some cases, and also dropped their technology. Chronicles Valeria adopted their technology, then after like a year said, oh, we can't use it, it's not fit for purpose, we've wasted millions of dollars trying to use it, now we're back to square one. Worlds Adrift tried to use it, then the game went under because they didn't realise how expensive it would be to use Spatial OS for what they wanted it to do. Since then, there's been like one game made with it, and it was a battle royale. It didn't do very well and then got sold to another company. And now they've moved into, of course, if you can't get developers to use your engine that you've made, why not get people in cryptocurrency to do it? Because they don't know any better. But I digress. Like experience with thousands of players in the same arenas, making possible huge battles or concert experiences in virtual worlds. Now, this is a quote. "We definitely want to take it to the next level," said Jacobs. "We've solved the hardest problems like networking and rendering, and we've got it running fast. City State Entertainment's achievement with its game engine is impressive." No mention of the MMO yet in this, by the way. "Considering real-time battle royales like Call of Duty Warzone 2 are confined to around 150 players in a match or given server instance." Jacobs didn't say who the minority investors are, except to note that the group has one new lead investor. And then this is the quote that came on the other website, which, by the way, this City State Entertainment Business Wire, this is not a public press release. This is not for the consumption of normal people. This is like a business puff piece where they're essentially just saying, look at how good we are and all the things that we're doing for other investors. This is a business PR statement. It's not meant for regular people to be reading. That's why it reads like business nonsense, essentially. So each demo Jacobs has shown has gotten progressively better with more players in a given space. Interesting. I must not have caught those ones. Then this is, of course, talking about the hiring we already looked at. Unlike many of the companies getting funding, City State Entertainment is not making a blockchain game, Jacob said, as he doesn't believe it can bring value to the MMO. Crazy. We actually agree on that one. And then this is again the quote about the engine, which we already read. He then says that Camelot Chained and Final Stand Ragnarok are being built for PC, but might go to consoles. Pretty much nothing burger there. The games have to actually be made before you can transfer it to anything apart from the fucking bin. The company has about 38 people and it's hiring more. Most of the employees are veterans of the industry, but they didn't come from Mythic. We've been working on Camelot Chained forever. Yeah, you fucking have. But now we'll be able to hire more people and can speed it up. It's been a decade. It's not out of beta. It's not even in a good beta. It's an alpha by all accounts. In time, City State Entertainment hopes to gather resources to create a platform that it can license out to other game makers. I wonder who's been saying that for a real long time, that they're not focused on making the MMO anymore. They're focused on making an engine that can compete with Unreal Engine, Unity, Improbable in this case as well, that they can then license out to people, perhaps that are making metaverses, perhaps, just normal game developers. I wonder if that's the focus and not on the MMORPG, which is what I've been told repeatedly behind the scenes. But of course, this is speculation on my part, and you have to take that with a grain of salt. Who can make use of the technology to build massive games with densely packed player counts in other genres? We could license the technology, but we can't do that today. It's just not ready. Jacob said he hopes to get a version of Final Stand Ragnarok into the market in a number of months so the company can prove that its technology works. Now, explore this sentence for me a little bit, because I can't say that this isn't a lie, because the game's released, right? But again, this is another for business purpose interview. This is not for normal people to read, because if normal people read this that are familiar with the project, they know that this is untrue. And anybody who can Google for 10 seconds can see that this is untrue. Jacob said he hopes to get a version of Final Stand Ragnarok into the market. You can go on Steam right now and you can buy this game. I'll just show you to make sure I'm not, taking crazy pills, as they'd say in the 70s. Final Stand Ragnarok, £15.49. I wonder, is this not in the market? Can I not buy this right now? Is Steam not the market? Is a released product not in the market? I'm confused. But, maybe that's just me. Maybe I just can't read anymore. As for the metaverse, Jacobs believes that the real-time technology that would make it possible to bring large numbers of players together in a confined space is doable. Why is he talking about the metaverse? It's so transparent, it's unreal. It isn't easy to do, as current servers have limitations on real-time simulations, but Jacobs believes it isn't in the distant future. Still, at the end of the day, Jacobs isn't selling the tech as a metaverse play. What the fuck are you talking about it for then? In half this interview is you talking about the metaverse. At the end of the day, it's an MMO. No, it's an engine that you're talking about licensing. That's what we can deliver on. With the right funding, we could absolutely have a metaverse. We're going to be focused, and our focus has been on building an engine that can drive large-scale battles. All about that engine, all about that paper. So, of course, then the next thing we're going to look at is CSE co-founder has left to work for Meta. Now, CSE co-founder, Andrew here, speaks about it. He replies to it. And this is a very illuminating read between the lines experience, so I'm going to go through it with you. Oh, hi. Sooner or later, someone was going to notice, which means it's been a while. One thing that needs a smidge of clarification is the timeline of all this. I originally told CSE, City State Entertainment, of my intention to transition out of the company way back in January of 2021, roughly a year after the public debut of Final Stand Ragnarok. Why is he bringing that up? I wonder. The reason for that decision needs to stay between me and CSE, but the thing to take away is that those reasons were and are entirely between me and CSE. Clearly had a disagreement with the direction of the company. And I wonder why he mentions the Final Stand Ragnarok, because they were working on an MMO, and then when they received funding last time, the funding, as I've been told and as I've put in videos before, was not explicitly for Camelot Chained. It was for the engine and subsequently more games, aka Final Stand Ragnarok, which again is underpinned in the VentureBeat article where he talks more about the Final Stand Ragnarok and metaverse and licensing the engine than he does the MMORPG, because that's where the focus of what investors want, because he's building an engine that could be really good. My decision to accept an offer from Meta was a mostly independent thing that happened over 18 months later. In the interest of giving the entire team at CSE the best chance for success, I accommodated a very long transition period between those two decisions. But the whole point of a transition is that eventually you come out of the other side. So as anyone saying Andrew left CSE for Meta, he's weaving the story out of some very finely split hairs. He didn't have the offer for Meta until 18 months later, as he says. So he didn't leave for that company, but he eventually did leave and went to that company. I'm only one person, and it wasn't the end for CSE when I started that transition, nor will this be the end for them now. I have great respect, and this is a fantastic read between the lines. I have great respect for the technical leadership of George, Christina, Tim, and others there, and I think they're well positioned to carry CSE's tech forward in whatever directions CSE decides to pursue. Who does he not mention? Mark Jacobs, the person who leads the company, who would have made the decision for Final Fantasy Ragnarok due to the investment. What does he say? Well positioned to carry CSE's tech forward in whatever directions CSE decides to pursue. This is a gold mine. This is a fucking treasure trove of information if you read between the lines here. Mostly, though, I want to thank everyone who supported us along the way. Back when Camelot Unchained was CSE's sole focus, you were the best thing about CSE. Back when we were focused on making the MMO, the community was the best thing about the company. What can you even say? Like, this guy's just giving the game up without actually, just pointing to it and saying, this is the issue. He's just giving it out in a statement, which, again, you can just read between the lines on. As far as Wise Meta, he talks about believing in the metaverse, which, fuck the metaverse. But there we go. So that's some MMO news for you, talking about Camelot Unchained, something that I've talked about on the channel quite a lot, usually on the main channel, but obviously that's now on this one. And I sincerely don't think that MMO's ever going to release and be good, because, like I say, it's been a decade, pretty much, since people knew that. I think it was like 2014 that they started the Kickstarter. It's now 2023, and he can't even give people refunds that they were promised 2-3 years ago. It's absolutely crazy, but there you go. Very interesting if you enjoy reading between the lines on PR statements. And I don't know what this man's got hanging over the heads of these investors, but to give him another $15 million, it can't be for the game, because nobody plays the game. Nobody's really interested in the game anymore. And by the time that game released, it'd be like 7 years too late to capitalize on what people wanted from it. But there you go. Thanks for watching as always. See you next time. Peace out.